What if ChatGPT wasn't just getting smarter? What if it was about to get a whole new, custom-built brain? And I don't mean some simple software update. I'm talking about OpenAI building the actual silicon, the chips that it runs on.
Yep, you heard that right. OpenAI is jumping into the notoriously brutal, high-stakes game of making AI chips. So the real question we're going to break down here is pretty simple. Is this a stroke of absolute genius that's going to reshape the industry? Or is it a dangerously risky gamble?
Okay, so let's get right into it. What exactly is happening here, and why is it such a massive deal?
And it's really important to get what we mean by a custom AI chip. This is not the kind of processor you have in your laptop. You see, a general chip is kind of like a jack of all trades. It does a little of everything okay. A custom AI chip, though, that's an Olympic sprinter, built and trained for one single purpose, running these gigantic AI models with the most efficiency possible.
Exactly. And the whole reason for this incredibly bold move really boils down to breaking their GPU dependency. Right now, the entire AI world, and I mean everyone, runs on hardware made by one company, Nvidia. As the demand for future models just keeps surging, OpenAI basically wants to break free and finally control its own destiny.
So let's look at the genius side of the argument first. Because, if they can actually pull this off, the upsides are just massive.
A custom chip means you can tailor everything to be a perfect match for your models. We're talking about way better performance, lower latency, which means your ChatGPT prompts could get answered almost instantly. But the real prize here is full control. OpenAI would no longer be a hostage to whatever inventory Nvidia has or whatever price they decide to charge. OpenAI gets to call the shots.
Okay, but hold on. That control is unbelievably expensive and incredibly difficult to pull off. So now let's talk about the danger side, because the road to making your own hardware is littered with failures.
To really put this in perspective, just look at this number. According to reports, that's the size of the project Broadcom has taken on for this venture. $10 billion. That single number tells you everything about the colossal financial stakes here. We are talking about one of the most capital-intensive industries on the entire planet.
And this really gets at the huge gap between the ambition and the reality. The dream is this perfect future with optimized, cheaper models. But the reality? Chip manufacturing is an absolute minefield. You're dealing with massive complexity, global supply chains that can snap at any moment, and the constant risk of tiny design flaws that can turn millions of dollars of silicon into worthless coasters. And then there's something called yields, which is just how many good chips you get out of a batch. One major failure in any of these spots, and the whole thing could backfire spectacularly.
Those are fair points, absolutely. But the potential reward here could be worth all that risk, not just for OpenAI, but for everybody. This isn't happening in a vacuum. It could set off a massive shakeup across the whole tech industry.
What we're seeing here is a classic business strategy. It's called vertical integration, and it's the exact playbook Apple mastered. First, you design your own custom hardware. Then, you write software that is perfectly optimized for that hardware. And finally, boom, you control the entire ecosystem from top to bottom. If OpenAI succeeds, they stop being just an AI model company. They become an AI platform company. That is a whole different ballgame.
And that brings us to the giant elephant in the room. What does this all mean for Nvidia? For years now, they have been the undisputed king of AI hardware. But if OpenAI, and you have to believe other big tech players are watching this very closely, starts successfully building their own chips, it could be the first real crack in Nvidia's armor. It could completely change the game for AI computing costs for everyone.
So, we've laid out the incredible potential and the frankly terrifying risks. It really all comes down to this one question. Is it genius or is it a gamble? If you find yourself on Team OpenAI independence, you probably believe this bold move is absolutely necessary. You think they are paving the way for a whole new era that's going to redefine the entire infrastructure of artificial intelligence. But if you're on Team Let's Play Safe, you're looking at that $10 billion price tag, you're looking at the history of failed chip projects, and you're thinking the complexity is just too immense. The ambition is huge, but this ride is absolutely not guaranteed to have a happy ending.
So after hearing both sides of the argument, where do you land? Is OpenAI charting a brilliant new course for AI independence, or are they flying a little too close to the sun on a multi-billion-dollar gamble? Which mission do you back?